Hey guys, it's me. Today we're gonna be exploring the forgotten Adobe kingdom of Peru, called Chan. It is the largest pre-Columbian city in Peru, and was once home to over 30,000 people. That makes it almost twice the size of Machu Picchu. The impressive thing about this site is that it was built entirely out of Adobe. Over 2 billion bricks were used to construct buildings, palaces, temples, defensive walls, everything needed for a large city. Each brick was sun-dried and made from river clay and sand, and they are still standing to this day. They have also found ceramics from all over South America, suggesting that the kings may have been involved in trade and diplomacy with other cultures. As we mentioned earlier, the residential area of Chan is where the majority of the city's inhabitants lived and worked. In fact, one of the most interesting discoveries at Chan is the Great Wall that encircles the entire city. These spaces were likely used for religious ceremonies, political events, and social gatherings. For example, there is a large plaza in the center of the city that was probably used for markets and festivals. Was it built for defense, for show, or was it meant to keep people in as opposed to out? Again, unfortunately, we don't have much information to go off of, so it is hard to say. The third mystery is the lack of a royal tomb. In fact, we don't even know for sure that they exist. Now that we've explored what has been found at Chan and the mysteries that remain, it's time to take a look at how the city fell. However, it is speculated that several factors contributed to the decline of Chan. First, there was the changing of the climate. Between the 11th and 13th centuries, the climate in northern Peru changed from wet and warm to dry and cold. Every year, thousands of people come from all over the world to explore the ruins and learn about the fascinating history of the Inca Empire. This made it difficult to grow crops and may have led to famine and disease. And as always, thanks for watching. Second, there was increased warfare. The Inca Empire was constantly at war with its neighbors, and this took a toll on the city. Finally, there was internal strife. The Chimú kings were known to be power-hungry, and they often fought with each other for control of the empire. This instability may have also contributed to the city's decline. As we mentioned earlier, Chan was once home to over 30,000 people. However, by the time the Spanish arrived, the city was practically abandoned. But that wasn't because the Spanish came in and conquered the city. In fact, the Spanish never even attacked Chan. They didn't even know about it until quite a few years after they had already conquered the Inca Empire. This is due in part to the fact that the tunnels are probably very old and may have collapsed over time. Additionally, the tunnels are probably very narrow, which makes them difficult to detect with modern equipment. Nevertheless, some archaeologists are still searching for the tunnels, and who knows what they might find. Despite being the capital of one of the largest empires in pre-Columbian South America, no royal tombs have ever been found at Chan. This is unusual because the kings of Chimú were known to have been incredibly wealthy, and they would have had access to the finest craftsmen and materials. Where are their elaborate tombs? Were they looted by treasure hunters, or are they still waiting to be discovered? Who knows? They didn't bother to explore much further, and instead focused on the Inca Empire to the south. This gave the people of Chan a little bit of time to escape the city. However, by the time the Spanish returned to Chan in the early 16th century, it was completely deserted, and there are several ball courts that were used for the ancient game of pelota, which was similar to modern-day basketball. As we mentioned earlier, a huge portion of the city remains unexcavated. Some of this is due to the sheer size of the site. Some archaeologists believe that there are underground tunnels and passageways beneath the entire city. These tunnels would have allowed the inhabitants of Chan to move around the city undetected, which would have been useful for a number of reasons. For example, The tunnels could have been used to smuggle goods or people into the city, or they could have been used to escape in the event of an attack. Some archaeologists even believe that the tunnels were used to connect the various structures at Shanchan, allowing the inhabitants to move from one part of the city to another without having to go above ground. It would take years, if not decades, to excavate the entire city. However, some of it is also due to the fact that archaeologists don't really know where to start. Many of the structures at Shanchan are in a state of complete disrepair, and it can be difficult to determine their purpose or even how to excavate them without causing further damage. Additionally, many of the buildings are buried under layers of dirt and debris, making them even more difficult to locate and study. The wall is about 8 meters thick and 5 meters high and was built in the 9th century. Now let's take a look at some of the unsolved mysteries that continue to baffle archaeologists. The first mystery, as we mentioned earlier, is the purpose of the Dragon Pyramid. It is the largest structure in the city, and yet we do not know what it was used for. Some believe it was a palace, others believe it was a temple, and still others believe it may have been both. Unfortunately, much of the pyramid has been eroded away due to centuries of wind and rain, so it is unlikely that we will ever know for sure. It is unclear why the wall was built, but it is speculated that it was to protect the city from invaders. However, it may have also served as a symbol of the city's power and wealth. It is also where most of the city's agricultural activity took place. Archaeologists have found evidence of irrigated farming and storage facilities, as well as animal pens and butchering areas. The citadel gives us a glimpse into the wealth and power of the kings who ruled over Shanchan, but it doesn't really tell us much about how the common folk lived. It thrived between the 8th and 13th centuries, and mysteriously fell apart shortly after the Spanish arrived. But that isn't the only thing that makes it mysterious. There are huge sections of the city that are still unexcavated and unexplored. It is believed that the king and his courts resided here, but archaeologists have yet to find any definitive evidence such as a royal tomb. Next, there are several temples dedicated to various gods and deities, including one pyramid-shaped temple that is over 50 meters tall. Finally, there is the Wakadel, or the Dragon's Pyramid, which is the largest structure in the citadel of the Kings and Rizas, 66 feet above the ground. Its purpose is unknown, but it is speculated that it served as both a palace and a temple. Some archaeologists even claim that there are underground tunnels and secret passageways beneath the entire city. So today we're gonna explore what has been found at Shanchan so far and what secrets it may still be hiding. Let's get into it. Shanchan is located just north of the modern-day city of Trujillo and covers an area of about 20 square kilometers, which is about 7.7 square miles. The city is divided into two distinct areas. One is called the Citadel of the Kings, and was where the royal court and nobility lived. The other is called the residential area, and was where common folk lived and worked. The citadel takes up around a quarter of the entire city, and is surrounded by a high defensive wall that was built in the 10th century. It is also decorated with intricate patterns and designs. There are several impressive structures within the citadel. First, there is the palace complex, which consists of several interconnected buildings and courtyards. Archaeologists have found some interesting artifacts throughout the citadel, including jewelry, weapons, and tools made of gold, silver, and copper. For that, we need to look at the rest of the city. In addition to the agricultural activity, archaeologists have also found evidence of metalworking, pottery making, and other crafts. Finally, there are several public spaces throughout the residential area, including plazas, ball courts, and pyramids. So that's a quick overview of what has been found at Shanchan so far. The second mystery is the purpose of the Great Wall that surrounds the city. Finally, there is the mystery of the unexcavated areas. However, there is also another theory as to why there are so many unexcavated areas at Chan Chan. However, despite the fact that there is evidence of these tunnels, we still haven't found them. The fall of Chan Chan. So, why did everyone leave Chan Chan? Well, we don't know for sure. When the Spanish finally arrived at Chan Chan in 1476, they found a city in ruins. Today, Chan Chan is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most popular tourist destinations in Peru. So what do you think? Are there any other mysteries at Chan Chan that we didn't cover in this video? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.